Test, test.
You know, Michael, you're
Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, if you find value in what I'm sharing today, please like and subscribe. I'm coming to you today to share an opinion and a warning. Since this is my first time talking to you directly, I want to be clear. Everything I discuss is for educational purposes and preparing yourself. Some of this stuff is scripted to keep me on my toes, but others I'm just kind of freeballing. So a little about me. I'm a working class. I work every day, doing different jobs. Right now, just kind of freelance work, gig work, that kind of thing. Um, when I'm not working, I like to play games, weird games, I guess you could say. I call it weird because a lot of people don't play these kind of games. I mean, some people do, but it seems weird to me. Um, but I like the city simulation, city builder games, Age of Empires. I do have some history with Red Alert and Command and Conquer and stuff like that. These games aren't as great anymore. They haven't really remade them as well. I plan on bringing that content to this channel eventually. Still kind of getting new to the YouTube thing. That's why you kind of see me spaced a little bit. I'm still learning everything and looking around, trying to get everything lined up. Um, Beyond the screen, I'm a husband, a father of two sons, 16 and 3. I care for my family. I'm not picture perfect and don't pretend to be. If you're here to judge a book by its cover, this is probably not the channel for you. I'm going to go on to my next stage here. Um, the ones and zeros mindset that AI seems to think I have, just by what I've explained to them. I keep my ears to the ground. I watch reels, follow threads, I read your comments. I don't believe everything I see on the internet, and yeah, sometimes even my tinfoil hat gets a little too tight. Back in 2020, I got very sick. That downtime sent me down a lot of rabbit holes. I started reading into things like Agenda 21 and deeper systematic shifts. See, I look at the world like a math problem. I grew up around computers. To me, everything is based on ones and zeros. It's binary. It either works or it doesn't. And when you look at the topics hitting the headlines right now, the math simply isn't adding up. I've been watching videos of teachers quitting mid-year. It's a crisis. It's changed my perspective. I stopped blaming the teachers and stopped looking at the administration. I see it with my own 16-year-old. I recently had to withdraw from high school because the policies were nonsensical. Even the principal I spoke with seemed hamstrung by the logic of the system. I believe a lot of the root cause of my son, anyway, is mental health. See a lot of similarities in his side of the family, his mother, brother, uncles, um, nieces, I guess you can say, nephews. They all had similar personalities and, you know, ways of life. And I'm trying to find the best way to put it. The same attitudes. I believe mental health is a really serious crisis that's nowhere near addressed as it should be and as it possibly used to be. I'm a bit older, but I'm not that old. So, um, kind of the purpose for this video was to go over some things. I'm trying to follow this script I put together with AI, and it's really not working for me. I want to do videos, and wanted to use the AI, but I just can't. I can't put it there. Um, so I'm gonna follow the script the best I can, and bear with me. I'm just all new to this. So Couple of things I want to just kind of spitball on is, lately I've seen a lot of videos, and even one comment saw. I mean, it was literally right there when I was thinking it. I was talking to my wife, and I looked over, and the comment, what I was thinking, was right there. And there's a lot of things coming out right now that why right now? Seems like an awful lot. And this year has been absolutely crazy. We've had many floods. There's been all kinds of things that have gone on. I mean, there's a huge list, and if you pay attention, then you probably know. We had the Kerrville flood here in Texas, and there was New Mexico, now California, Washington. They're dealing with some stuff there. Um, I'm really concerned about the near future. We got New Year's Eve events in certain places of the world canceled. Some understandable, like Bondi Beach. That's totally understandable why they would cancel that event. I don't quite remember off the top of my head the other places that were canceling those events, but Times Square wasn't one of them, which probably should be. If these other places are feeling like there might be a problem, um, I've played with tech a long time. I built computers when I was 15. Done it off and on since. All kinds of different things like that. Modding cell phones, games, whatnot. So one of the things I want to point out, Christmas here in East Texas is not really that abnormal for it to be warm. It was 75. It was all right. Um, but I was scrolling along, and I realized that another place that I'd spent some time in, Colorado Springs, was also in the near 70s. It's really weird to me for this time of year for them to have temperatures like that. Sorry, I'm kind of scatterbrained. I guess I got into this a little bit less prepared than I thought. Um, so I'm going to kind of go back to the script a little bit, and kind of give you better what I'm thinking, because AI did help me with that a little bit. So, like I said, we had the floods. This has gone on in 6 different places. I can't quite remember if it was this year the fires. I think it was last year the fires were happening in California. Thing in Hawaii happened. Yeah, I started to question. Are these events natural, or are they acts of war? I mean, we've got to start asking that question. We're in a new time and a new place, and any wars we've really ever been in before. And we have all this technology we can do all kinds of things with. Certainly we don't know about everything. Society in general doesn't know everything. There's a lot that's kept in the bag, per se. So yesterday AT&T went down, from what I understand, nationwide. I know in my area it was down for several hours. I have 2 phones. I do gig work, so one of my phones I use just for work, and I use another phone for personal. So one of my phones just kept switching through providers. Even though I was on Wi-Fi calling, it was switching through providers. It went from AT&T to T-Mobile to Verizon, and then back to AT&T. And it was weird because if I turned off Wi-Fi, I got nothing. No cell network at all. Um, these systems, I've never, in many years of using cell phones, I've never seen them fail like they have over the past year. Never. The AWS outage, they have redundancies for this kind of thing, and for the redundancies to even fail, that says a lot. We really got to focus on, all these things together. There's a lot of things that I wanted to talk about here, and I'm not feeling the script really, so I'm kind of just off script. Like I said, I've been working with tech for a long time and doing a lot of things with it. Not half as much over the last, several years as I used to. Busy with life, basically. I just want to warn people, keep a backup plan. Figure out a place where you can go, where there's not so many people. There's not people you don't trust. because the world is crazy. I mean, I can't even believe how crazy. I'm in the public every day, and I'm like, the stupidity. It's probably the biggest thing that gets me is the stupidity. I mean, they've really, literally dumbed down society, and they've talked about this in the past, and I've read about it. I've read about a lot of things. I do a lot of reading. I mean, no, the internet does not have all the answers, and no, not everything on the internet is true. Um, I personally think that's for one person to figure out, yourself to figure out. Um, I like I said, I do a lot of reading, and I've taken everything as a grain of salt, and I've formed my own opinion of things. And we have things like Agenda 21, and I don't know if you heard of that, and somebody called me a conspiracy theorist all day long. But a lot of that's come to fruition. A lot of things that people have called conspiracies have come to fruition, and I think that's something we really need to focus on as for our families and in preserving ourselves and and more. I'm probably one of the least prepared people out there. Like I said, this is my first YouTube video. I've never done this before, and I'm trying to get a little more comfortable with it. I'm streaming live because it seems easier at the moment to get started. So, I mean, if you follow my video, that's great. If you don't, that's fine too. I'm not really caring. I don't make money off of YouTube. I haven't made a dime off of YouTube. Be nice to. I see a lot of people appearing to make very good livings off of YouTube, and that'd be great. But am I counting on that? No. Um, we talk about a lot of systems having redundancy. AWS, Amazon Web Services, is one of them. And I am not a huge fan of Amazon right now. I might get into that later. But I'm not a huge fan of Amazon right now. And I think they're doing some illegal stuff when it comes to hiring, but that's nothing I can prove or validate. Um, but Amazon Web Services handles a lot of the internet. A lot of it. And, maybe not your core banks, major banks, Capital One, Chase, such like that. But your other stuff like Chime, One Card, if you have the Credit Karma card, any of these web-based cards, a lot of them use Amazon Web Services. And if they don't use it in one way, they use it in another. One of the things I do as per gig work is probably a pretty hot topic these days. I do Walmart Spark, which is Walmart deliveries, and boy, hot mess. I tell you, I watch a lot of things going on with Spark that I saw with Uber back in 17 when I started doing that. 2017, let me clarify. And it's quite amazing how these systems have a way of taking advantage and manipulating people, and they really don't put the information out there that customers should know. They don't. For example, we have what's called general merchandise deliveries, and for a long time, I wondered. I didn't use the service. I mean, I did, but I didn't. It takes certain criteria to get a general merchandise delivery. So a lot of time when I'd order grocery delivery or grocery pickup, and that would come. One driver would bring all the stuff. I don't like getting things in separate batches, so usually I won't even buy it right then if it's going to come in like a separate batch or whatever. But some people do, and when they do, if it's a non-perishable item, they get what's called a general merchandise delivery (GMD). That GMD delivery, typically a driver will have. I've had up to 23. Well, actually, I guess I've had up to 30. With that one exception, one time I had up to 30. And they pay, depending, it depends on different things, but I like them. I tend to like the GMD deliveries. But point being is, it didn't seem like they informed the customer that way when, you're out making these deliveries and, you're driving up on their property. They may be expecting FedEx or UPS, which comes in a marked truck, typically. And point being is, I guess my Bluetooth cut off because I took it out of my ear. But they don't tell people, in Texas here, everybody's got a gun. Everybody's got a weapon. Everybody's got protection, okay? And that's respectful. I can respect that and and go with that. Um, but you don't really necessarily feel comfortable driving up on somebody's property and, you're not sure if it's the right address because, again, you got people that don't actually have their address posted either, and the maps will do all kinds of crazy things. I've had a map take me 10, 20, 30 miles off from where the actual destination was. And it's kind of you got to do your due diligence. It's a lesson learned for me. I wish I learned the lesson a little sooner. Um, I've done a lot of different works where mapping and using GPS was an important part of the job. Um, but they don't really tell people, hey, this is going to be a driver. This is going to be a delivery driver bringing you this package. They just say it'll be delivered on this day. It's coming out at this time. They don't really give you details on how it's going to be delivered. I guess if it was coming FedEx or UPS, they'd have a tracking number, which a lot of time it seems anymore that Walmart sells from all different suppliers. They'll sell from people they never even touch a product though. They drop ship and do all kinds of things. So, but people don't know. People don't necessarily know how their package is going to necessarily come, especially when it's non-perishable. It's not grocery. Even when it's grocery, some of these things I'm delivering, I'm like, why? It doesn't make sense to me. A Monster, for example, come through a GMD delivery, a Monster energy drink, or a 12-pack of soda of some sort. A lot of the deliveries we don't get to see. They're in sealed packages, packages you can't see through or anything like that. So, we got all this craziness going on. There was an Amazon driver making a delivery a few months ago, and I think it was back in Houston, and he was shot. I don't remember if he was killed or not. Just making a delivery, and it could have been one of those instances where the customer wasn't expecting anybody in front of their house, and we live in this new high-tech world. We want to think the tech's perfect, but it's not. It's far from perfect. We got these autonomous cars. They're far from perfect. But the real nature of this video is to kind of warn you. I woke up with the worst feeling this morning. I noticed yesterday AT&T was out, and I just thought that was so weird, so peculiar for the network to be just down like that for that period of time. I want to say it was at least 4 hours. And I heard, from different sources that, other networks were having problems too because there's 3 major cell phone networks in the country. Anything else in the country, there's 4 networks, but there's 3 major. So you got AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon. Those are the 3 major. And then you have Dish or Boost, whatever the hell you want to call it. I think it's they could have picked a better company to take that Sprint network over anyway. These 3 providers, everybody else piggybacks off of them. Even Dish, Boost, whatever you want to call it, they tend to piggyback off these networks as well. So if you have Boost, if you're on a Dish native network or a Boost native network, great. But a lot of times they haven't filled out that network yet. That network's antiquated, and they've been filling it out, but it's a network that was used by Sprint, and they're replacing the equipment with 5G and all that craziness. So it's not really all what you think. Everything else, though, besides AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, they're what's called network operators, virtual network operators, and they basically just buy lines from the major providers and resell them, at whatever cost. They buy them for a discount and then resell them. And, TracFone's done this forever. And they are, probably the king of that. While TracFone was really unique, they were the most unique cell phone provider I ever experienced. I've never used them much, but I used them a few times. They were the initial Obama phones, where you could, get a free phone and a limited amount of airtime and whatever. Initially, it was just like you got some minutes and some text, and that was it. And then it moved on to data. Now it's smartphones and all that. But the unique part was all the minutes stored in the phone. So you connected to the network like you were just an AT&T customer, but really you were a track phone customer, and your minutes were limited on the phone. They've changed that a lot now. I haven't used it in quite some time. It's not something I've really wasted my money on. But the thing is about track phone is they did have it at a point where it was kind of like it would work anywhere. It would work, it would work in an area that had T-Mobile and not AT&T, or Verizon and not T-Mobile, or it would work anywhere. It would connect to whatever network and it would work, which was really good. That was why it was unique. Dish has tried to do this as well with their network. I don't think that worked out so well for them. They have the worst frickin' marketing team, the worst R&D team I've ever seen. I worked for them for a little while, and I was just like, this could be done so much better. And as you can tell in my video, I'm a little bit of a scatterbrain, but I'm not really stupid. I'm not the smartest guy, but I'm not really stupid. But Dish had a lot of problems. They, they kept using the same equipment for years and years and years when they should have did away with it. In my personal opinion, RAM and processor is what makes computers work, and everything's a computer. Your phone, your dish receiver, your DirecTV receiver, your cable box, your cable modem, everything's a computer, in one way or another, whether it's a Linux, Unix, Windows, whatever. It's a computer. All right, your phones are Android's Linux typically, or Unix, of that nature, not Windows. But we've had Windows phones, as you've seen, that failed. It was a miserable failure. I would have liked to have seen that done better, honestly. But more onto the topic of why this is a warning. We've got lots of changes going on, and lots of things are coming out that don't really make sense. We had the Charlie Kirk thing happen, and I didn't watch Charlie Kirk a whole lot. I felt like he was meant for the younger generation because I understood a lot of what he was saying, and I could relate to a lot of what he was saying. So I really didn't watch him that much. It was kind of preaching to the choir to me. So, with that being said, I did believe in what he said, and he's right about a lot of things. A majority of things he was right, but he was changing the narrative. He was changing what the powers that be wanted you to see. And that's something we really got to realize. There's several kinds of people in this world that they have plenty of money. Money is not their agenda, whereas a majority of us, it is. We're money driven, where there's many people that are not money driven. They're driven by other things, crazy things, nefarious things. We got people like Bill Gates, and he's if you look into his history and you look into his father's history, you'll look to see that there's a whole eugenics background. And if you don't know what that word means, I'm not going to go into detail on YouTube. I don't know if that makes it past the censors or not, but look up eugenics, and see what that's about. And it kind of correlates with something I'm going to go into here in a little bit. I don't want this video to go on forever, but I really could talk all day. I could just kind of put my opinion out there and see where it goes, and that's what I'm doing here. And like I said, if you're going to judge a book by its cover, that's fine. There's a lot going on in here that, maybe some realize, some don't. And I would like more people to realize it because, society has to be a collective to make any kind of difference. It's going to take more than one person. It's going to take more than a city full of people. It's going to take a lot of people to make a difference in what we're seeing. So, couple of things, couple of topics I want to go over, and comments are appreciated. If you have any kind of feedback for me, anything I need to change about doing my videos, and whatever I can do to make this better, make my content better for you, and I'm all for it. I'm learning. I'm not, like I said, I'm no expert. I'm not perfect. I'm learning. So, a couple of videos I've seen over the past couple of days. one was it was a group of TikTok videos, and I don't quite remember the poster. I would give her credit, and I probably will in the comments later on or in the description later on. But she just, she's one of those people that, just scroll through TikToks and show you videos of her going through TikToks. And she had a couple different topics. Some were months old, some were just a few weeks old. And I come across them yesterday, and I just watch them, just kind of listen to them, grain of salt, like I said. And their teacher after teacher after teacher was the first one. And there was a bunch of teachers talking about, and the title was "Teachers Quitting," mid-year, I think something like that. Um, and these teachers are getting real fed up with the students. And I have a 16-year-old in the house. Believe me, I know. I deal with a lot with him. I deal with a lot with him, and to maintain my privacy the best I can with that, I'll just say I deal with a lot with him. And I've tried to deal with the schools the best I can. I've tried to reason with them and talk with them. As I said, I'm working class. I work jobs. I worked for Dish Network. Part of the reason for me losing my job was I kept having to deal with his schooling. And I told the school repeatedly um, that, I couldn't just leave my job. I couldn't leave from 100 miles away and come pick him up from school at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay? I said, you want to discipline him for having his phone or whatever's going on, being late for class, that's fine. I'm totally fine with you disciplining him. But stop punishing me. I'm just trying to support the family. I'm doing my best with him. And they continued doing it. They actually spited me. They literally spited me. I told the teacher, I said, if you give him one more after school detention, I'm going to withdraw him. And she literally, it was either that day or the next day after me saying that, either sent me a message through one of their platforms where they communicate with parents and said, Zachary has 2 more after school detentions. Literally gave me the middle finger. That's what I felt like anyway. She gave me the middle finger. I'm not going to mention any school districts. It's something that might see litigation soon because I've dealt with continuous problems with the school since, he was 5 years old and he had problems, and we tried to address them the best we could. His mother, she had a lot of issues, a lot of mental health issues that initially I didn't see. My mistake. Not always do you realize who you have kids with and what they're going to be 10 years down the road. So she had a lot of mental health issues. We separated, long story. But I've been taking care of him for at least 7-8 years now not by myself. I remarried a few years ago, and my wife, she's great, but he causes problems between her and I. As expected, stepchild, stepmother, it's a common situation. But recently, like I said, I've had problems all along with him. I've been at different places, different areas. More populated areas, we had less problems. They had more understanding for him. Less populated areas and the small cities we lived in, more problems. And I think there's a lot of small areas that are just too comfortable with looking at the cities and saying that could never happen here. And, it can happen anywhere. It's starting to happen here. It's starting to move around. And I knew it would, especially after, the Democrats were done with the illegals in the cities. That was all for a reason. If you think it was just to be humanitarian, it was not to be humanitarian. Nothing about that was humanitarian. I can guarantee you nothing about that was humanitarian. People have come across the border for decades, and it's always been dangerous, very dangerous. People drown in the Rio. People get killed by the cartels. A lot of things happen. It's very dangerous, nonetheless. It was not humanitarian. People were even coming over the Darien Strait. There's, if you watch videos like I do on YouTube, I'm sure you've seen some of them, and they were bringing kids across there. Dangerous areas. Survival's 10%. You got a really bad chance at survival going through those areas. Unless you're prepared. In my understanding, I've never been. Let me clarify. I've never been through those areas, but that's to my understanding. I've seen that in a lot of places. A lot of people have said that. Even people that have made the trek through there, doing YouTube videos. It's not an easy trek. It's dangerous. It's, it's life-threatening. So none of that was humanitarian. I don't care how much you think it was humanitarian, granting asylum. No, it was. Mm-mm. No, they did that purposely. And there's all kinds of speculation as to why they did that. You could say it was to change the census, if to open more seats in the House and Senate. You can say it was that. You can say it was what was the word they used? It was like mass relocation, like I'm trying to remember the word they used for it, because things will pop up and they'll disappear, and it's just all crazy. So, um, we're approaching 2026 now, and you know, 2019. I don't think we at the end of 2019 about this time we didn't never think what was going to unfold over the following months. I don't. People knew. It was obvious. People knew. We had event 201, I think it is. And that, if you don't know what that is, you should search it. I mean, it's a real eye opener to start. It's kind of funny how people will be so naive, but it's it's to happen for them to do that. Long story short, what it was an enactment, a roundtable enactment of what a global pandemic would be like, and this was done in October 2019. So we know what happened in January, February, March, April, May 2019. I mean 2020. We all know what happened. The reality is to that this was long planned. It was planned long ago. I mean, it's out there. I mean, the information's out there. You got to seek it. The news media isn't going to tell you. They're not going to tell you any of it. They're not going to tell you anything they don't want you to know. That the powers that be don't want you to know. The powers that be, they realize the internet has unfolded about 90% of their secrets. And I say 90% because I think there's a very dark 10% out there. And only God can imagine what that's like. We look at the things like Epstein, Charlie Kirk, as I was getting to a moment ago, and I kind of got sidetracked, scatterbrained. This is why I need a script. But we look at all these things. We look at Charlie Kirk and all that, and Epstein files, and P. Diddy, and I know him as P. Diddy in my day. He had good music, but you start to think about his music, and you're like, whoa, how long was this going on? And it's kind of shocking, to say the least. And it's, to me, at this point, it's all connected, and I kind of see everything as a math equation. And sometimes the math adds up, and sometimes it doesn't. In that situation, it very much adds up. Rich people want what they want, and they're willing to pay for it. I mean, when it's legal and it's fine, they can flex their money and flex their arm. But when it's not legal and it's not fine, they can't flex their arm so much, if you get what I'm saying. So, now, I'm going to say this. I support Trump to an extent. I think Trump should have recruited somebody to do what he's doing now. I think he should have retired. I would have never taken that abuse from society. I'd have been like, screw it. They don't want to learn. They learn the hard way. But he's obviously a way better man than me. I'll put it that way. I want to talk about Agenda 21. I started reading about this probably, I don't know, maybe 2011, 2012, probably late to the game, really. And I'll show you something here in a minute. Just kind of validate it. If you think I'm just talking conspiracy theory, it's not a conspiracy theory by far. And I'll show you. I have a I have a web page loaded, and I'm going to try to switch over to it. I'm going to tell you I'm new at using all these tools, so I don't really know the best tools to use. I know what I've learned so far, and that's about it when it comes to it. I used to build, fix computers, but this stuff is all beyond me because I've been working, doing the family thing, and not as into what I used to be. Um, we have a lot of systems failing around us, and we got the school system failing, we got the police failing, we got cell phone networks failing, communications. Let's not emphasize on cell phone networks. Let's emphasize on communication, because a lot of us went from using landlines, beepers, and then we went to cell phones, and now we're that day and age where a lot of us don't even have a home phone. We don't have a landline phone, and when that cell phone goes out, we don't have communication. We don't. And I know in my house we don't have a landline phone. I don't care to. I don't care to spend the money on it. We all have cell phones. It all double-edged sword is what it is, honestly, because even with the landline phones, your voice can be heard no matter what. No matter if you think it can be heard. No matter if you think you deleted something, it's still there. You're gonna be heard, whether you like it or not. They're monitoring everything. They're monitoring my video right now and everything I'm telling you. And if it makes it anywhere, I'll be surprised. If it doesn't, I won't be surprised. So what I'm getting at is you really need to be prepared. There's a lot more going on than meets the eye. And my mom used to always say, nothing is as it seems. And I firmly believe that to be true. Nothing is as it seems. Now, as for truths, I don't know any truths. I know what I've seen and what I've experienced, and I know what I've read. I believe firmly Agenda 21 is truth. It's solid. A couple other things I believe. I believe weather modification is solid. It's happening in real time, in more ways than one. Cloud seeding is just one of many ways it's happening. This is actually something I started when I first put my tinfoil hat on. When I first did that, was one of the first things I got into reading about and digging more into. And I like to really fact check things, really fact check things, and not just with bias. I don't really care Democrat or Republican. It's not really that important to me. It's bias that's important to me. You're either biased to one side or you're unbiased, and you can look at all sides and make your own opinion. And that's what you should do. You should look at all sides of the table and form your own opinion. Use your own judgment, your own gut, your own instinct. We're all human. We all have an instinct. Okay? And so I've used my own instinct, and, I started learning about weather modification back then, 2012, 2011, maybe earlier. I don't know the exact date, and lots went on since then. Okay, I'm old. So one thing, you can look it up, HAARP, HAARP. It's operated by the U.S. Air Force and University of Fairbanks, Alaska. Now, that's one that's on the surface. It's been on the surface a while. It's kind of well known. Long story short, it uses the AM frequency and it shoots it into the sky. It was originally found to shoot into the ground to find oil. They realized they turned it around and shot it into the sky. It can change the ionosphere, therefore changing the jet stream. And when you change the jet stream, you change the weather. So that's one thing. Cloud seeding was something I thought was more far-fetched, honestly. A lot of people, I would gather, thought the opposite. That cloud seeding was more obvious than HAARP, sending a radio frequency into space, basically. So, but the cloud seeding, kind of blew my mind. I spent some time in the Kerrville area. I worked down there a little bit, and I met a lot of nice people, met a lot of good people, a lot of farms, vast land. Land as far as the mind can imagine, and a beautiful place. And it was all around that river, the Guadalupe, I believe it is. And so when that flood happened, it shocking to me. I'm about 6 hours away, and we were dry. We'd been dry here. We hadn't hardly had any rain at all. And bad things happened there. I can't imagine what them people went through. It was horrible. I saw the video. I mean, I know the area, so I can almost place myself there. Um, it was horrible. And then you're hearing about around the same time New Mexico was having some flooding. But here's the point I'm getting at with that. At the same time, I'm scrolling Facebook. I'm just going through my feed and looking at stuff I normally look at, and here comes one meteorologist, and he's like, "Oh yeah, cloud seeding did happen over the I think it's the Rio Grande Valley, they call it. Yeah, cloud seeding did happen about 36 hours ago or so, or they said 2 3 days they said, but if you looked at the timing, the flooding happened overnight, and it was like the day before the flooding happened, maybe the start of that day before the flooding happened, and they said, yeah, cloud seeding did happen in that area at this time, in relation to, this happening. And but it didn't cause a flood, no way. It couldn't possibly cause that flood. So of course, my fact checker brain went off, and I said, okay, let's look more into this. And I started searching cloud seeding, and I got a little hits here and there, and it's like, yeah, not worried about it too much. And like I said, I really thought that was more far-fetched than HARP. But then I started seeing more meteorologists from all over the country popping up on my Facebook in the following days. Essentially just, repeating what that meteorologist said. Oh no, cloud seeding can't do this kind of devastation. It can't do this kind of thing. It can't. And again, I'm going to reiterate. I really didn't buy the cloud seeding thing. I didn't buy into it. Well, little did I know, after I started going down the rabbit hole, clouding seeding's been around for decades. Decades they've been doing it. They do it for farms, so farms could get moisture for the crops to grow. They do it for many reasons. While it makes great sense to do that, to deny it and just act like we're all stupid, that says something else, and then it brings the question, how many other countries are doing this kind of thing? Can this be used in war? I mean, and we look at what's going on in California, we'll look at what happened, with the fires, the floods. It's kind of strange if you really put it all together, like a math equation. You start adding everything up and you start looking back at it. You wonder what's really going on. So I'm gonna reiterate the purpose of the video is that I've seen things over the last couple of days, particularly yesterday, and even with my tinfoil hat on, I was kind of like, I had to take a step back and say, what? I grew up in Florida, on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and there are blanks in my childhood, going to school and stuff like that, but I come across a video the other day that talked about CIA experiments, and when it had to do with ESP, and it really hit home and resonated with me, because I'm like, wait a minute, I remember some aspects of this video. You have to seek it out. I really am not a good educator or teacher or anything like that. But you'd have to seek it out to understand. People really have to seek their own information, and I can't emphasize that enough. There's all kinds of people on YouTube, and some are telling lies, and they're on TikTok too. I've got my first TikTok account today. I really didn't want TikTok. I believe it's spyware. They don't even talk about spyware no more. It honestly brings up another topic. So, we got what happened in 2020, and I know you really can't be too specific on YouTube. We got major players in that, like the head of the NIH in 2020, the previous owner of Microsoft, that became a philanthropist into giving people vaccines. The previous owner of Microsoft was, at one point, it heads with an owner of another company that did antivirus software, and like I said, I've been into computers for a long time, and it struck me odd. At the time, I was more into it than I am now. Um, but if you look around now, we really don't have antivirus software. It's all built into Windows. So before, we had Norton, we had Zone Alarm, we had McAfee, and that's who I speak of. McAfee, he was found dead, to my understanding, in Florida, I believe, or on a boat, or something. I don't remember. A lot of bits and pieces, up here. He was found dead, and it was said that Gates had created a virus that would attack the antivirus system, because Gates himself was creating an antivirus he wanted to integrate. He wanted to integrate into Windows, and that antivirus was Microsoft Security Essentials. I don't know if any of you remember, but he targeted other antiviruses with a virus. Let's think about that for a minute. Let's think about who's been in the light lately when it comes to vaccines and viruses. Let's think about that. This man, he created an operating system, if you will, an orifice. He then created a virus for that operating system that you would need an antivirus for. Math, like I said, do the math. Now he's a philanthropist. Now he's worried about sustainability. He's worried about, as I said in the beginning of the video, eugenics. It's so crazy how we get fed little bits of information, and they're so far apart. They're spread out. It's like pieces of the puzzle that you can't figure out. And all these pieces, they're there. All the pieces to the puzzle are there. But figuring out where they go, depending on the size of the puzzle, is the difficulty, right? So let's just think about that for a minute. Think about how he created the computer virus to create the antivirus software. And this was, I want to say, 2008, 2009-ish. Right before one person was elected. So, that person there, man, he did a lot too. He did a lot. He did a lot that was not good for us. And I don't care what race you are. I don't care. I'm not a racist person. I was never raised racist. I don't care. It's not about the skin color. It's not. I think if anything rules anything in this world, it's money and religion. Those are the two biggest ruling factors in our world. It's money and religion. And that person I speak of, and I'm kind of just speaking around names, as you've noticed. But he really didn't share our religious beliefs in this country. What's the word I'm looking for? He didn't share our religious contention. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. I don't know. A lot of people in America are Christian. Most of our society is Christian based. We have all walks of life here, and I fully respect that, and I'm not trying to disrespect that, but the United States has predominantly been Christian or Catholic or something of that nature, and that's how I know it. These other religions, I don't really understand them. Don't think I could begin to understand them. It's hard to explain, but I don't care about no race or nothing like that. But Obama, a lot of people misconceived him. They thought he was something he wasn't. Okay, and I grew up, I don't want to say, well, I grew up poor, but, I've made a better life for myself than I had when I was young. It's not the best life, but it's not the life I had when I was young. It's life. And I grew up around all kinds of people. Predominantly, what's the best word for it anymore? I don't want to be offensive. I don't want to, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I grew up predominantly around black people, and I have a great respect for them. And he wasn't that. He wasn't the people I was used to. He wasn't the people that I had been around. He didn't have the same religious beliefs as the people I've been around. A lot of people I've been around, even Hispanic people are real Christian based, from what I gather. So he, in my opinion, he wasn't that. He didn't have those views and those agendas that a Christian person would have. Um, and we look at healthcare, and this is a big topic right now. And we look at this healthcare problem. I recall when Obamacare was first set on the news. They first put it on the news, and they were like talking about, oh, you'll be fined if you don't have health insurance. You'll have the healthcare marketplace. You'll go there and find your health insurance. Unless you get health insurance through employer, I think it was something like that. To me, it's kind of vague. I remember me trying, and I had worked a job for a long time, been with a company I'm not going to disclose for a long time, and they offered health insurance, but it wasn't logical. I mean, I was making $1,400 a month, $1,600 a month tops, and that was well above minimum wage. I didn't get overtime. I was well above minimum wage, almost double, I think. I think it was almost double minimum wage. And I went to my employer's, open enrollment into healthcare, and it was like half of my check for my family. It was like, how am I supposed to pay my other bills? Like, it was like half my check. I'm like, I don't even need health insurance that bad. Like, I was fairly healthy. I'm still fairly healthy. That's changed a lot since 2020. But I was, I didn't really think much about health. I didn't really, I did my thing. I worked and stayed active, and that's pretty much just the life. Now, I think honestly, for most people, I see people jogging around, and I'm like, why? I mean, if you got a job and you stay active, why? I mean, but I guess today in these days, a lot of people, they work from home, they trade in the stock market. I really don't understand how people make their money. Real estate trading, stuff like that. But at a point that, that's going to get old. The all the computer ways we're making money now. This is my first video, and I've watched 14-year-old kids become rich off of doing YouTube videos, and I'm in my mid-40s, and this is my first one. So that's food for thought, right? Let me figure out my next topic. I've kind of touched a few things, but with the healthcare, I want to say healthcare was way better before Obamacare. I believe Obamacare was designed for a reason, for the reasons we're looking at today. And unfortunately, this is all well more scripted than I am right now, to be honest. But don't think that, things are always as just they seem. There's like 90% of the time more to the story. And when there's not, be grateful. Um, but when you really look at the whole thing with that healthcare plan and that healthcare agenda, I saw lots of changes with that. I mean, there were so many changes that happened there. We started getting these urgent cares popping up. Nah, I thought it was kind of weird. At the time I lived in a town, I don't want to say more than 200,000 people. I don't know the exact number. I'm not going to lie to you. but no more than 200,000 people in this town. Maybe not more than 100,000. It's probably not more than 100,000 now that I think about it. And with 3 or 4 of these urgent cares pop up. And I'm like, okay, interesting. All right, whatever. You know, I didn't go to the hospital much. I didn't need the doctors much. I have some bad dental, if you couldn't tell already, and so most of my healthcare issues, um, even health insurance before couldn't help me. You know, I couldn't get health insurance that covered my dental before that was reasonable. So I've had a lot of dental abscesses, and I've dealt with that a lot. It's just something I've just dealt with. Been, you know, you hear lots of stories. Not like I said, I read and listen here. I don't forget really. I forget some things, but important things I don't really forget. And when you're talking about dental, it's very um, very difficult to get work, especially at the stage my teeth are. I kind of worry that if I were to go in and get dental work, that it could kill me. So, um, but then again, the infections could as well, and I know that. So that's one of the things, like, you know, and this is the same thing I thought in 2020. I was like, I got really sick, you know, and it was January, late January. I got stupid sick. I mean, sicker than I want to say almost than I ever been. It might have been the worst, but there was one other instance in 2017 that was similar, and I emphasize that it was similar. It was very similar. I remember my oldest son. We were heading to family house from. We were down in Houston. We were living down there, and we were heading to a family house. And my son, he was, 6 or 7 at the time. It was in 2017. He's 16 now. So yeah, he was 6 or 7 at the time, and he turned blue in the face on our drive. And we immediately got off the interstate and went to the hospital. And they said he had a flu, and I had been sick. I had been working and been sick. I couldn't really take any time off work. It was basically about survival. So I continued on, but I was sick for weeks and weeks. I didn't never quite heal, and at one point, my oldest son's mother and we decided to all go to the hospital once again down in Houston once we got back down that way. And they actually had pulled me to the side, and I still don't know why they pulled me to a side and separated me from what was my family at the time. You know, when my son's still my family, I really can't say as much about my ex because yeah, I can't. But I can't figure out why they pulled me to the side. They said, you know, that they were on the back side of it, and you know they were okay, but they were more concerned about me for some reason. But I guess they did another test and they decided that it was okay or something. They sent me on the way. I don't even remember if they gave us any meds or anything. I'm not big on taking meds. I'm not big on drugs. Not at all. Like uh, homeopathic, I consider stuff like that, but like popping pills and shit, not my thing. Um, so you know, like you know, antibiotics. If I need an antibiotic, obviously, you know, I know what an antibiotic is, and you know, I know its purpose. But and you know, I get it from the doctor, or whatever. And I want to move on a little bit because I'm just kind of dragging on here. It's more than I anticipated, and I'm just kind of freeballing on this whole thing. And um, we really need to look at protecting our families and being prepared for the very worst. And if you don't know what the very worst is, look on YouTube, find some prepper videos that explain how SHTF, as one of the guys I like to watch, that hits the fan. Um, because it's going to. There's not a doubt in my mind that we are coming to a climax of things going really bad south in society. I mean, it's incredibly hard to live. I mean, my wife and I both work. As I said, I have a 3-year-old as well, and my wife and I both work. I think I think some months we bring in around 4 grand a month. That should be pretty good for any family to survive, and it's not cutting it. It's just, like I said, we don't have any drug habits or anything like that. We're working people. Like, you can use your judgment all you want, but I'm being honest here. Um, we might, you know, partake in some nonchalant 60s type activities, if you get what I mean. But it comparable to what tobacco or nicotine or alcohol costs. Not like a crack habit where you're spending your whole paycheck on it and that kind of thing. No, I mean it's legal in I think 18 states now or something like that. Just declassified in federal. They reclassified it to a Schedule 3. You get what I'm saying. So I mean, yeah, probably not one of the best choices in life, but it's better than taking a Xanax. I can tell you that. I can tell you at Xanax, I've seen do some crazy stuff to people, and if you need to calm your nerves, I don't know anything better. I did I did have a bout of anxiety about 15 years ago, 16 years ago, and I went into the hospital and they gave me this one drug. I told them I didn't want Xanax because I tried it. You know, I ain't here to bullshit, but I tried it, and it just put me to sleep. And I don't like things that get me too far out of my head. You know, and I don't really like drinking or anything like that. I do drink, and I don't want to sound like a shill, as I like to call it. I'm not perfect. I have fun. I do. I've had fun a lot of my life, and I prioritize family. So take everything a grain of salt. You know, look around and, and observe behaviors of people. You know, and I do. I do the gig work, like I said, and I see a lot that goes on. I'm in the grocery store every day, and you know, it's just to make money. I'm not there to spy on nobody. I observe, you know, observe it, and I see how people act and react. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot more than meets the eye going on. Um, I'm gonna flip over and mute for a minute and take a quick little break and let you read something. And this is Agenda 21, and this has been on the internet as far back as I can remember. And I'm gonna try to get up there without fail, but knowing my luck, it'll probably give me some problems. But I'm gonna go ahead and mute the video for a minute. If you're still watching, great. If you're not, that's great too. I'm just putting it out there. Alright, everybody, I'm back. I just had to take a quick little intermission. I'm going to go ahead and keep scrolling through this a little bit and, just kind of explain some things that I understand and, kind of give you my perspective on it all. If you saw at the top of this document, it's dated 1992. So it goes back a very long time. I'm back. I just had to take a quick little intermission. Damn it. I'm gonna go ahead and keep scrolling through this a little bit. And sorry, like I said, new to YouTube videos and still getting used to all this stuff. I know you guys probably seen my adjustments and whatnot going on. Hopefully my next videos will be better, but it's a learning process, and I figure how much better can you learn by then just doing it and learning from your mistakes. So, as I said, I'm kind of just going through this document here. I'm kind of speeding through it. Not gonna, go into full detail on it, but if, something I was sitting there for a minute and highlighted, talks about tariffs and tariff escalation, limiting access to open export markets, the removal of existing distortions in international trade is essential. I mean, these people were thinking about this in 1992, and they have changed this agenda. It's now called Agenda 2030. But in all honesty, this is out there, public information on the internet. I'm not sharing anything. You can't go and search yourself. If you type in Agenda 21 into Google, you will get this. It'll be the first thing that pops up. If you see down here at the bottom, you'll see United Nations. This is the United Nations website. I read this long ago. I've been through this several times and kind of blown away by it. This is what built my tinfoil hat. Long story short. So it's just one of the things where, they're not going to put it on CNN primetime. They're not going to put it there. So I'm going to put it here. It'll never probably be prime time. It'll never probably catch any audience, really. I don't have a lot of friends on Facebook. I'm not very social. It's probably the most social I've ever been in my life. I mean, I put my mug on the computer for the whole world to see, but whatever. I just want to share some information that I've learned over the years, that I've read over the years. It's just kind of crazy. I'm going to try to find some other imperative points because, a lot of this stuff, they use big words, and it's hard for a lot of people to understand, I guess. Maybe even hard for me to understand completely, because I don't. And to be completely transparent with you, in some ways at this point, I feel like maybe it's necessary. But then again, they built it that way. They've been dumbing us down. They've been making us less aware of what's really going on around us. Like I said, I'm gonna scroll back to the top and just show you the start of this document. This document's 351 pages long. This was a United Nations conference on environment and development in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And that was in from the 3rd to the 14th of June 1992. Here we have the title Agenda 21. Some of the things I highlighted a few minutes ago when I was taking a break, and I was like, this is a focus of my mindset. So one thing, they wanted to combat poverty, and we'll go to these sections and kind of look at that and talk about it. They also wanted to change consumption patterns, and that's something that's real critical right now, because a lot of people don't realize how fragile our food chain is. There are so many people. There are billions of people on the planet, and any slight little thing can really mess up our food chain. As you've seen in 2020 with the toilet paper, everybody freaked out and bought toilet paper all of a sudden. They were worried about wiping their butt, and I'm like, you're not worried about staying healthy? You're not worried about the common measures for a cold, such as, you know, vitamin C. And my first thought, my first instinct was, why is the orange juice got a full cooler, and you can't get no toilet paper? Nobody's drinking orange juice. Nobody's getting vitamin C. I mean, what's going on here with that? You know, like I'm thinking orange juice is like one of the things that's it's good for so many reasons, and maybe not in abundance, but you know, for example, we have emergency. Have you ever seen emergency? It's a common thing in the pharmacy section. It's basically a high dose of vitamin C because it helps you fight these diseases and whatnot, and these colds and flus, and it helps you. It helps your body, you know, repair. We've been given all kinds of bad information. You know, I watch all kinds of stuff, and I listen to all kinds of stuff, and all kinds of people, doctors, and everything. You know, it's so crazy to me. You know that more people haven't caught on and said, "Wow, you know, we really got to, you know, form our own opinion and do what makes sense to us." But we look here, and this is the UN, this is the United Nations. This is not even our government. This is not even the United States government, okay? And this was in 1992. I can't emphasize that enough. This was in 1992. All right, so this has been in the works. Who knows how long it took them to draw all this up? You know, my understanding, you know, the thoughts come out in the 70s. You know, and I don't want to touch the basis of the thoughts because it's kind of, you know, us or them kind of thing, you know, and that's the way they seen it. What was that first one? It was 3.1, I think. And you see, they talk in international language. You know, they're not talking in any individual country. They're not speaking of any individual country. They're speaking in the world as a whole. And everything in here, you'll see them speak in the world as a whole. And so here we are. This was it, yeah, 3.1. So poverty. And I'm going to read a little bit of this. Like I said, if you really want to go through all of this, I'm not going to go through 351 pages with you, but I'm going to go and read over a few things just to kind of engage you a little bit. Poverty is a complex, multidimensional problem with origins in both the national and international domains. No uniform solution can be found for global application. Rather, country-specific programs to tackle poverty and international efforts supporting national efforts, as well as the parallel process of creating a supportive international environment, are crucial for a solution to this problem. The eradication of poverty and hunger, greater equity in income distribution, and human resource development remains major challenges everywhere. The struggle against poverty is shared responsibility of all countries. While managing resources sustainably, an environmental policy that focuses mainly on the conservation and protection of resources must take due account of those who depend on the resources for their livelihoods. Otherwise, it could have adverse impact both on poverty and on chances for long-term success in resource and environmental conservation. Equally, a development policy that focused mainly on increasing the production of goods without addressing the sustainability of resources on which production is based will sooner or later run into declining productivity, which could also have an adverse effect on or adverse impact on poverty. A specific anti-poverty strategy is therefore one of the basic conditions ensuring sustainable development. An effective strategy for tackling the problems of poverty, development, and environment simultaneously should begin by focusing on resources, production, and people, and should cover demographic issues, enhance healthcare and education, the rights of women, the role of youth, and the indigenous people and local communities, and a democratic participation process in association with improved governance. So I'm going to pause right there for a minute and Let you sit on that for a minute. Kind of think about it. What we're dealing with today. Now, again, I'm going to reiterate 1992. This was talked about. We're in 2025. We're talking 30 plus years ago. So, this has been going on a while, and it's been unfolding before us, and because we haven't had access to this for a long time, we really, the internet has opened up a world of information that these people don't want out there anymore. They realized this was secret. This was red hat material. Okay, I mean, for a long time, even some people, even today, will say it's a conspiracy theory. It's not. It's not a theory. This was drawn up. I mean, I didn't draw this up. I know you can't see it on this page here because for some reason I don't have this right, and I have to figure that out. Something I have to figure out. But there's this PDF that I'm viewing here, or this document. It comes right from the same website. It's right at the bottom of what you see there. So I want to see if I can highlight some other, like I said, it's 351 pages. It's a big publication. But I want to get into some of the more crazy stuff that, with a lot of these quote-unquote government officials, they'll bury it deep within the middle of it, so, you'll get tired of reading. As most people will. So one thing I learned about this, though, this word here, sustainable, you really want to think it's a good word, and it's really bad. When they think about sustainable, we have to look at things, and I'm just going to go ahead and free ball search it here. The Guildstones. So let's go in here, and I don't know why. I'm gonna see if I can fix this screen here. Still haven't fixed it. So I'm just trying to fix this and see if I can get to where you can see the full screen. Like I said, I'm still getting used to all this stuff. And it's kind of delayed on my output, so but long story short, a person came into planning our lawyer's office or bank, I think it was, and there's information about all this out there, but these stones had basically a lot of what's written in Agenda 21 written in stone. It's amazing, but if you look here, on the morning of July 6, 2022, they were destroyed. If you look down further, a man using a synonym of Robert C. Christian approached the company to have that done, and it wasn't really his name. They don't know who convinced him to do it, but when we look at the timeline of some of these things, you know, like I said, the Agenda 21, 1992, you know what I mean? And it goes all the way here to September 2002. This was a big master plan. And you really have to understand and read it. Um, but it's a very unique, interesting topic. Yeah, and it has directly to do with what's going on, I believe, because I mean this did get destroyed in 2022, and it was after. So I correlate Agenda 21, the 21 part, with the year 2021, and I think that's about accurate. Because when you look at when you know what happened and when everything shut down and stuff, it was between the year 2020 and 2021. So it's a lot of food for thought, but this is kind of the mindset I have, the mathematical mindset. We'll just go through this a little bit more and kind of let's see if we can find what was written exactly on the basically says the population should never exceed like 500 million or something like that. I wish it would. Let me see. I mean, yeah, New World Order, all this stuff, you know, these people were somewhat right. That's what it is. That's what they're heading for. Okay, here it is. Here's the inscriptions. Okay, so maintain humanity under a 500, is it 500 million? So what they're saying there is they believe the population should maintain under 500 million people globally. So, and earlier in my video, I talked about eugenics and Gates. Well, that's where this comes into play. This guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Unite humanity with a living new language. Rule passion, faith, tradition, all things with tempered reason. Protect people with fair laws and just courts. Let all nations rule internally, resolving disputes in a world court. So when you see the spray paintings there of New World Order, it's not that far fetched. That's what they want. They want a world government. That's what the globalists want, and that's who built this. It was globalists, and they wanted to maintain their privacy. And that's fine. You know, we all like to maintain a little bit of privacy here and there. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. This is the next step in the page, or this next page in the book. And I feel that this page here of the book is going to be a very ugly one for the United States, because as we're learning, we have a lot of useless officials. And how do I say this without I'm not a very bright person. I'm not the smartest crayon in the box. I don't feel I am. Don't feel I'll ever be. But there is a lot more stupid people than me out there, and I'm seeing it more and more as the day goes on. Balance personal rights with social duties. It's crazy stuff. You really got to study it all, but this is why I need a script, because I'm just kind of all over the place and just showing you things that I've seen and I've learned and I've read. I've read all this. I've been through this, you know, years ago. This was all like at the beginning of my rabbit hole. The rabbit hole has gotten so deep, though. It's hard to even express. You know, some of the things that I've seen and read. I'm like, I don't know how to put it all into words and make it make sense, you know, and that's why you have to form your own opinion. Um, you know, there's this talk too, Luciferian Secret Society now. That pertains to the Freemasons. Um, I think that's where they're going with that. So they say R.C. Christian was a Freemason, and there's a lot of Freemasons in our society, and I'm sure a few will come across my video. And they're smart people. They're, you know, I've read a lot about it, and you know, they have to work their way through different ranks, and man, I'm drawing a blank right now for some of this stuff, and but they go through basically different ranks. We had Candace Owens. She come out and she's like, I'm one of the Masons at Turning Point USA. It blew my mind because what I read about Freemasonry is women can't be Freemasons. They have a different order they follow. Freemasonry was designed for the best of the best men, basically. You know, best morals, best, you know, upbringing, the best, you know, mindset. You know, smart, well-rounded. And you have to earn that. You know, you have to know somebody that knows somebody. You know, you have to ask and be invited in. You can't just go join. You know, it's a cult nonetheless, and a lot of powerful people are involved in this, and it's hard to say how deep it goes and how deep it resonates because they won't tell us. They won't give us all the answers. They know now. They know now that there's smart people out there that have a lot of the answers. I mean, like I told you, you know, looking at the Agenda 21, and I told you about eugenics. Well, here's eugenics right here. Okay, and we can go to that topic and we can go look at that. But I mean, I could spend all day here going through these different topics and how it correlates. I mean, it all correlates. It even correlates to the Diddy, the Epstein thing. It all correlates. And it correlates on a global scale. It's not just United States. You guys are sitting here, you know, a lot of people are like, ooh, release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files. Well, it's a lot more complicated than just releasing files because we don't have all of them. There's no way we could have all of them. We don't have all the information. There's airports that aircraft flew into that we don't have the information on. Okay? And that's what you have to understand. We don't... This is a global thing. This isn't just United States government hiding something. It's big. Real big. But... let's go ahead and go to that, actually. We're going to go ahead and go to eugenics there where it talks about that. And, so it's basically to make the perfect race. That's basically the gist of eugenics. Is they want to... it's a discredited beliefs and practices that aim to improve the genetic quality of a human population. Historically... eugenicists have attempted to alter the frequency of various human phenotypes by inhibiting the fertility of those considered inferior or promoting that of those considered superior. So, in layman's terms, let's get rid of the inferior and promote the superior. Let's get rid of the lesser of society, and let's make the upper society better. Best way I can say it, I guess. Maybe later. Leave me the fuck alone. Damn, I said that live. I'm gonna have to edit that out, I'm sure. Oh yeah. So this goes back a very long way. It goes back a very long way, and I'm gonna try to see if I can get to the point where it includes some current characters. Um, and everything I'm searching here is all public information. It's all out there. I'm not looking at no secret database or anything like that. You can go look it up yourself. Look, the address is right there. Um, Nothing nefarious. No viruses, or no. I'm not trying to give you a virus. Just giving you my opinion on how I see things, because I've read all this stuff and I've glazed this stuff. And I may not have fully read all of it, but I've glazed it. um, it's kind of running the mouse over some things, you know. I don't want to stumble over my words trying to read all of that, but you know, kind of just read it as I go, and you kind of get the point a little bit. But I recommend reading, you know, more through it and kind of get the more of a just through it, you know, going on your own and seeing it for yourself, you know, just seeing it. I'm not doing any kind of magic here, you know. I've not got that good yet, but so it you know it comes down to that. Trying to see. So you know you read that and then like I said, I don't have all day, but I like to just share this stuff with you guys because it's out there. But you gotta stop focusing on the media. You gotta stop looking at the news stations. The news stations are never gonna tell you any of this stuff. They're just not. They're not gonna tell you. Um, Try to make the connection here without actually searching it to what I wanted to make the connection to it earlier. Alright, guys, I'm gonna have to pause for a minute. One of my kids is doing something he shouldn't be. Hold on. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. So, let's see here. There's all kinds of citations on this. I mean, it's not a theory. As anything I'm going to share with you today, I don't believe is a theory. And like I said, I like to go fact check my own stuff. I don't just make stuff up. I don't just pull it out my butt. And I even see things sometimes I'm like, wait, I want to read that, you know, because I kind of want to read that right there. Because we talk about today and what's been going on. Health and human rights leaders call for an international ban on species-altering procedures. Food for thought. And now you see what comes up here when it comes to eugenics. So so that there is basically a DNA strand. What a DNA strand looks like, I guess. You know those jabs they've been giving out. That's mRNA, very similar to DNA. That should have been a red flag for anybody with a brain, in my personal opinion. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and go back to the top of Wikipedia here, because that's. I mean, this went back to World War II, I guess. I mean. So this is Bill Gates' father, and I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, when I first read this stuff, that it actually talks about eugenics here at the end. Because it said that he was, I guess, basically, you know, the apple doesn't fall far, so he was into eugenics and had that mindset as well. As you can see, these were very wealthy people. They were always wealthy people. You know, his father was, I think, it was a lawyer. So I mean, they did well financially. Let's go ahead and do this. So. Must be a scrub topic. So now we read about eugenics and what it is, right? We know what it is. It's, you know, just the changing of humankind. They wanted to make the perfect race. That's what their goal is, to make the perfect race. His father served on the board of Planned Parenthood. Now, we probably know in recent, you know, history that Planned Parenthood has been a very questionable organization. And like I said, and here we go. That'll correlate back here, where it was talking about reproductive. No. That'll correlate. Well, it'll correlate here too, but I actually focused that on the guild stones. So all correlates. Math. Remember, I told you math. And I want to emphasize this right now because I'm going to show you something here in a minute because I'm just going through some different things. Like I said, all this public information. This is Google AI is putting this information out here. Over here, I believe this is going to be the citations over here where it finds this information. So if you don't know what a citation is, it's basically where the information was gathered from. You can dive deeper into AI mode and it'll tell you. Yeah, so this is the citations here. This is where it's scoured the internet, for different things that have correlated. Nature, Alliance for Science. Now we've seen Alliance for Science before, haven't we? I'm pretty sure if you paid attention, you have. Population control theory. These are these fact checks that are biased. They're 100% biased. I mean, come on, do the math. It all, you put it all together in your head. Read it all, put it all together. So, and of course, I'm going to tell you, everything on the internet is modified to where they want it. Now, if there is a topic out here about Bill Gates, it's not going to paint him in a bad light. Only you can decide what you think is a bad light. Whereas he doesn't necessarily think this is a bad light. A lot of these people that are calling these shots don't think this is a bad light. They think this is what needs to happen. And for the survival of mankind, actually. So let's go. So now we've seen here. I wanted to show this because it's going to be important. But I say next this Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and their population control theory. Now they can call it a theory all they want. But we can go here. And type in coronavirus. You see that date? Do you see that owner? Okay. We can call it all conspiracy theory all we want, but the information's out there, like I said. Now I'm just going to right click, search Google, the Preparedness Institute. I'll find it. And who do we have here? It all comes together. I mean, you look at it, And I studied this back in 2020. I started looking at this stuff. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, this is public information. It's out there. It's been out there. They haven't even scrubbed this. They have scrubbed everything else, but they haven't scrubbed this. It doesn't make sense to me. It's like, I know people are busy. I'm a busy person. I'm constantly trying to keep up with life, but I've paid attention to this stuff. So something we've been hearing a lot lately: avian viruses, exotic. Remember that word from 2020? Exotic. But let's go back to the UK Patent Office, and then just so you know, this is the UK website, government UK. Still not even scrubbed there, and their laws have been tightening really bad, really bad. They're arresting people for posting on social media and stuff. So. I mean, there's 26 pages of this. And it doesn't all start in 2020. You gotta dig around a little bit. 2015, 2004. 2004. 2007. 2004. SARS-associated coronavirus, if you need any more proof. But yet they kept screaming at us it was a new virus. Oh! There's never a new virus. The only thing new about it was the modifications. (2006) in the New York Blood Center. I haven't looked up this applicant or owner yet, but let's go ahead and we'll do that together. So I like to go to Wikipedia because Wikipedia is the dictionary, and I should donate because they're half the reason you can correlate this information. But let's see who funded that. A lot of people said, and it's true, follow the money, right? And this killed my mom, by the way. Convalescent plasma. They gave my 79-year-old mom that like it was going to do something good for her. Didn't. Just trying to see if we could. These are just all the citations. Let's go back up. Maybe I went too fast. And they were studying on chimpanzees, and if you know anything about, how life started, yeah, kind of makes sense. So a lot of this talk, 2019, 2020, 21, 2016, they were studying this stuff. 2014, here in the United States. So, I mean, I've never searched that one before. I haven't seen that before either. That just kind of makes me just roll my eyes. I don't have my video going right now because I'm just showing you this stuff, but Philip Morris, South America. Philip Morris, what do they do? Do they perhaps, have inhalables? Something you inhale? That was in 2022 though. So that's post-COVID. Well, here's a Chinese company in 2015. with the use of taurine in prevention and/or treatment of diseases related to coronavirus. Oh, I'm just doing the math for you. I'm just kind of showing you. You know, we got the we got the Preparedness Institute again. I don't know what this is, KD Swiss. I've never understood what that GmbH meant. Like I said, I'm not the smartest crayon in the box. (2003) we talk about the spike protein. So they were playing with this stuff all along, but they come out like, they just play us for stupid. Most are. The cytokine storm. So the cytokine storm, you know, when I was following COVID back in 2020, I probably can't even say these words on here. I don't even know why I'm saying them. But back in 2020, you know, it was a big thing. That's what, basically what led up to death. You know, the real point I'm getting at with all this is, you know, it's much bigger than just our government. You know, our government's had a hand in it, but everybody's had a hand in it. You know, of course, they've had a hand in it in 2021. We know that. Um, Lots of these were, you know, post-COVID. Of course, there's a lot of stuff that happened post-COVID because it wasn't in the public's eye yet. So I guess there's not a Wikipedia on that. Interesting there. Very interesting. Shanghai Tech University. This is a vaccine compound. Well, I guess you have it there. That's Johnson & Johnson. And that was 2004. And you all, and this is the thing, you're like, oh, Trump fast-tracked the vaccines. That was some of his glorification he likes to do. Not necessarily something I agree with. Osterpoint Pharma. What a name. Let's keep going. I could use the filters here and the date, but I like to see all these and just kind of go through them. It's actually been a while since I come here. I think the U.S. site's more, you have to like log in and stuff, and I'm not interested in doing all that. Again, MERS, MERS. That was another form of that virus. There were actually a couple, because they had different effects. There was one that had like a really high mortality rate, but I think it was too high for what they were going for. Um, it's really quite crazy, honestly. They call it CB19, but it wasn't new. 2009. Let's search that one. I want to see what the non corporation is. It's Japanese, Chinese, whatever. No, it's Chinese. $1993. Well, not long after that publication from the UN. Damn it. 1990 veterinary. Makes you wonder why they, wanted to hide that one solution that had to do with horses. Yes, I'm beating around the bush a little bit, but I feel I'm going to be editing this video, editing some of the things I say out of it. If it doesn't get taken down in entirety, because I'm just putting out too much true information. $1996. $1992. They keep talking about the K9 version of it, and maybe that's where they were testing it first. I was a little young in that year, so. 'Now, mind you, 2015, a lot of our healthcare changed just before that. So I'm gonna guess, but this was something of a prophylactic. Sounds like a prophylactic. $1984. Why, if I'm not mistaken, that was a drug manufacturer back in the day. Yeah. Yeah. Again, Pfizer. So, you could say it's K9, but I really, maybe they made some drugs for animals. I believe they did, actually, now that I think about it, because I knew somebody that had a dog that needed some treatment, and she was a dumbass, and she took the dog's drugs. Yeah, very sad. South America again. $1993 too. 1993. They didn't have no detection until 2020. Crazy. And here we are again with the Preparedness Institute. They had several patents, but you know that like you've seen firsthand, that's funded by Bill and Melinda Gates. So when you hear that guy talk about it, you gotta say, I don't even want to hear you. I don't even want to hear your lying ass. But yeah, so that's all. That's 26 pages of patents, you know, and there's probably, you know, let's just go. From 980 to 2020 or 2019. Okay. One. I don't know why that one popped up, but okay. That didn't even filter it. Let's do it again. Yeah, okay. So there's 7 pages of patents in the UK Patent Office, government.uk. Before January of 2019. That's some food for thought. So, I mean, don't believe everything you see on your mainstream media. If you're not going to get all the answers you want there. If you've seen what I did here, I went to actual places. Government.uk, I clicked that. I mean, this is... I'm going to go ahead and search US Patent Office. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I really focused on this one. When I was sick in 2020, that's when I spent days doing this. I spent more time than I'd like to admit. Let's see here. A little different. Let's see. $18, $16. I mean, it's there similarly on the US patent site. I found the UK patent site a little bit more easy to navigate. It showed more information when you're looking at it. 'Cause as you see, I put it in the Preparedness Institute, but it's actually just showing scientists' names, I guess. Let's see. This is 1989. I don't know if that pertains. A lot more pages. They were studying this to do all kinds of stuff. They thought this was going to be like a miracle drug. A lot of these dates are pretty recent. Really recent. Like today. Wow, that's today. It's fucking sick. It is sick. I'm gonna have to wrap this up soon, guys. I've spent way too much time on this today. But, I mean, there's a lot of food for thought there. But like I said, guys, you know, protect your family, you know. Don't think anything's impossible. There is a world of information we don't even know. We don't even have a clue. I mean, I've spent several hours here. I don't even know how long this video has run on. I really don't. I'd like to say more. Really, I got totally off topic when it came to that. It's just one of the big topics that just, you know, kind of resonates with me. Maybe I'll be able to continue more in another video about, you know, some of the things I'm feeling today. But I'm going to tell you, I woke up this morning having the worst feeling about the near future. With what I seen happen yesterday with the cell network, you know, some other networks going down, with AWS going down for the period it did a few months ago. There's a lot going on. We got all these wars happening, and we got the whole, you know, Democrats versus Republicans bull crap, and you know, it's all distractions. It's all distractions. We have a good day. I'm gonna go ahead and end this broadcast and